Hey there, it's Marisha from SLP Now. I was just at the ASHA convention and I am totally pumped up from meeting a bunch of you and getting to learn a little bit too. So I thought I would hop on and do a live video. So I did a video like this about a year or two ago about parent communication and sharing some of my favorite tips, and I love it because I have even better tips to share now, and a more streamlined way to keep up with parent communication. And it is often low on the totem pole of all the things that we need to get done, like seeing our students, writing IEPs, billing Medicaid, writing progress reports. Like, there's a long list of things that often come before parent communication, but we really do want to have parents as our advocates. We want to have them on our team, and we want to communicate as much as is reasonably possible, right? Because they can really help us with supporting our students, helping them generalize the skills that they're learning, and then also just being able to communicate regularly and establish that relationship can really prevent any problems from arising, because there's nothing worse than like getting to litigation or whatnot because there was a huge miscommunication and a small issue just boiled over. So there are some really easy things that we can do to kind of prevent that from happening and to better serve our students. But it doesn't have to take forever. And so I wanted to share some of my ideas, and I had a list of 4 tips to kind of make parent communication a little bit easier. And my first one was to make a list and make it really easy for yourself to be able to contact a parent when something comes up, whether it's an issue or like a celebration, like Johnny finally met this goal, or any other exciting news if you finally had a breakthrough or whatnot. I think having, especially if we're able to balance the concerns with the positive, it can make for a much better experience when it comes to the IEP or the reevaluation or whatnot. So I would go, it was a pain to get all of the contact information from my IEP system, or whatever system my district was using, so I would go through and make a list. And I would have that list on a piece of paper, and I would grab it whenever I needed to. But I'm about to show you an easier way to do that. And the second thing that I did was to keep a log of communication. That helps us to remember what's going on, because we do have we're often interacting with at least 50 sets of parents, 60, 70, sometimes 100. So it's a lot to keep track of. And sometimes when those yucky situations come up, it's really helpful to have a log of that information. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but in those kinds of cases, if we have that log, then it protects us, and we are often doing the right things. We just need to be able to document that. So I use so this is brand new, and I'm sorry because my normal internet was not good at the hotel, but let's go in here. So the new SLP Now has a way for you to import your students and put the contact information right here. So no more digging through IEP systems or other systems. You can just put in the contact information for easy access. And then when you're going to contact a parent, you can kind of, like if you're giving them an update, it has all of your treatment notes in one place. And this is a fake student, so no HIPAA concerns or anything. But then you can also use this to log communication with a parent or the teacher, just so you have a running log of everything that's happening. And it's all in one place, so it's really streamlined, and it makes it so much easier to keep track of those pieces, because the email is right there and the phone is right there. And there's a really easy way to import that information without it having to take a bunch of time. You can just put it all in a spreadsheet and do the work once, and then it's there for you to access whenever you need it. So that is what that looks like. And then, so that covers my 2 steps, and it's so much easier now than it used to be, because I had this whole crazy label system and I never like I had a hard time keeping up with it, and at the end of the year I would spend a bunch of time like making sure that I moved over the labels to the right files, and it worked okay. It worked for the time, but now we have a better way to do that and an easier way to keep track of these pieces, which is awesome. And one other thing that I started using, because my third rule is to communicate regularly, and it's a lot easier to communicate regularly when it's really easy to do it. You just click on the student, you access the contact information, and you put in that log. I have a couple different tools that I use. So I've used Remind, and then some other SLPs recommended Class Dojo, Seesaw, Google Voice. So there are a number of different tools that you can use to make it even easier to keep in touch with your parents. And I chose Remind with my caseload because that's what my teachers were using, and it was so easy. And it's amazing how much more responsive parents are to a text versus a phone call. Like I'll call them all day long trying to get them to answer and talk to me on the phone, and I'll send them a message on Remind, and they respond in 2 seconds. So it's fascinating. But I was using that to send, and I wouldn't do it every day, but I would use it to send a quick note about how the student did. And I would try and keep it more positive than, like I'd make sure to try and put in some positivity before I bring in the concerns, or not necessarily before, but I try to work on having a good balance, especially for the students whose parents always get concerns. I think it's really helpful to be able to point out some of their strengths as well. But I would do that because I had very, very little success with homework, so I would use that to send a quick picture of what we did in speech, or I would tell them what we worked on and how they can work on that at home too. And the parents love it. They love being in the know, and even the ones that are like, they're gonna hate this, they're not gonna do it, they were some of the most engaged, which was fascinating, and it's in and of itself. But it was just an amazing tool, and it made it really easy to keep up with communication. And the kids loved being able to give, it was almost a reward for them when I sent them a good note home. So that was one tool that was really helpful, and I wrote a blog post rounding up the different tools. So I will be sure to add that to this post. And then the other piece was just communicating early. So in the system that I showed you just a minute ago, you can sort by your IEP date. So I just have a date in my calendar to contact all of the parents for the following month. And so I make sure that I keep up with that. But it's really easy to just sort by the log, and then sort by the IEP due date, and then I can just contact those parents, and then I put it in the log. So I know who I've contacted, what worked, what didn't work, and it's really easy to follow up and go from there. So those are my 4 parent communication tips. And I know it's often low on the totem pole. Talking is hard after you've talked for a very long time. But yeah, so those are the 4 things that I have found to be very helpful when streamlining parent communication, trying to work smarter and not harder, but just getting the most bang for our buck. And I think it's a really great way to be able to invest our time, because like I said, it can really prevent any big issues from coming up, because then everything gets addressed very quickly, and then they know who we are and they respect us, and because then they know that we are doing our best to help their students, which again makes everything so much easier. So a recap of the 4 things are to gather your parent contact information, make sure that you have a good way to keep a log of that communication, make sure that you are communicating early when it comes to IEPs. So with the system I showed you, you can sort by the IEP date and quickly see who you've contacted and when, what the response was, and all of that. And then the 4th part, which I said out of order, was to communicate regularly. And I will share a blog post with links to different tools that you can use. So that was all. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I will be keeping an eye on those and checking in. And I hope that you have an awesome rest of your day.